Oh, this is a classic FA Cup fixture. Blackburn Rovers against Newcastle United meet each other again in the FA Cup. And we are delighted to bring back Harry, our regular Terrace Talk fan for Blackburn. Good evening, Harry.
Good evening, mate.
And joining us from his very successful YouTube channel, we've got Jordi Josh representing Newcastle. How are you, Josh?
I'm very fine, very good, mate. Thank you very much for asking. I hope you two are all okay as well.
Yeah, we are. Thank you. We're delighted to have you on here. Each week we preview all the Championship games, so it's nice to get a bit of Premier League chat going on here as well. Because Blackburn used to be Premier League, and Harry, you're wearing the very shirt, which I'm sure Josh is too young enough to remember, but will certainly know about the story. These teams have got a lot of history going back to the Jack Walker era. Harry, you weren't around then, but what do you hear about fans talking about Blackburn Newcastle battles for that league championship?
Yeah, of course, I know. I missed the glory days, so to speak. But there was a very famous game at Ewood Park just before we lifted the Premier League trophy. Potentially our last home game of the season. I think it was a 1-0 win at home to Newcastle from an Alan Shearer goal. So there's history in this fixture. We've seen some good games, even in my lifetime. Thinking back to the last time they were in the Championship, we did all right against them. A couple of goals from Charlie Mulgrew. I think we did the double over him once the season we went relegated, actually. So it's a game with a lot of history, a lot of credibility. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Josh, you'll know Blackburn well because you've played them recently in different cup competitions and, of course, in the recent Premier League. What's your views on this as a fixture? Were you happy to draw Blackburn when the draw was made?
If I'm being honest, from a sort of fan perspective, I was very, very happy because, of course, their away allocation is around 8,000 or something. So from a fan perspective, I'm very excited for that. But in, of course, the football perspective, I am, all due respect to Blackburn, because I don't want to come across as sort of arrogant. Of course, we have got a very, very big game in the Premier League away at the Emirates Stadium, of course, against Arsenal. Oh, we're going to prioritise that one. I think we look, I don't want to be arrogant, but we should have enough to beat Blackburn. And of course, our season's not went too, as would expected, bottom of the Champions League group. Very hard, though, out of the Carabao Cup. The FA Cup is something we do need to prioritise. And yet again, all due respect to Blackburn, I think we'll pretty easily get past them. And we need to do that as well to have a sort of successful season from the terms of now.
Yeah. We'll come back to you in a second, Josh. Let's talk about the current forms then that the teams are in. And obviously we've got big games coming up this week. Harry, we're recording this before any of the Blackburn games midweek and at the weekend, but just how big are the fixtures for Blackburn before they get to play Newcastle?
Well, I think every game's a big game at the minute. The cliche is that there's 15 cup finals between now and the end of the season. And I think we need to be looking about getting around 15 points from those last games to really ensure that we're safe. And there's a lot of teams between us and the bottom three, but we're still in touch if we go on another really bad run. And there's a couple of fixtures that are really favourable for Rovers. I know Cardiff are on a bad run. Norwich are doing all right now, but a team that we did well against at the start of the season. So it's a good opportunity to pick up some good points. So there's important games for us. Obviously, Newcastle's going to be a difficult game on Tuesday because that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a tournament that they should really be prioritising. Obviously, like you said, out the Champions League, league position not going as well. I think they'll be a team that's going full force to win the FA Cup. So it's going to be a difficult game, but two important league games before that.
Yeah, and just tell the Newcastle fans watching this, Harry, what sort of style of football you've seen briefly that Eustace has brought into the Rovers.
Yeah, well, before Eustace, it was pretty much possession-based, free-flowing, attacking football. That's completely flipped on its head since Eustace come in. We're not trying to be much more direct. Although saying that, I thought the actual football against Preston was better than the game against Birmingham. Anyone who watched the game at Birmingham would say it's probably one of the worst games of football we've played in a long time. But you got to give him credit. He'd only had one training session before that time. Against a team like a Mowbray team that knew our players pretty well. Preston looked a lot better, played some decent football at times, but yeah, we're gonna look to be direct, probably a bit scrappy, and try and nick a few goals in the counter attack.
Josh, 6-time winners of FA Cup, Newcastle, and actually Blackburn 6-time winners as well, but none of them since the 1920s. So this is Is it right what Harry says? This is now becomes your priority. Now you're not going to get relegated. You're probably going to battle for Europe, although your fans might say we don't need it this year. What's your view on the importance of the FA Cup?
Well, I mentioned it before. Absolutely, it's got to be the importance, as we all know. Newcastle and trophies recently, we've not been the best of pals. I've never, of course, seen one in my entire lifetime. Neither has my dad, actually. So it's something that we really need to go for. We got very close last season with the Carabao Cup, and we really let ourselves down in that sort of in that performance in itself. But yes, it's really something we do need to prioritise. Like I said, over the Carabao Cup and the Champions League, the Premier League at the minute, it's a bit of a weird one for Newcastle United. We seem to be not turning up against the likes of Luton, Nottingham Forest at home, and of course, our most recent game, but we're beating the likes of Aston Villa away, who haven't lost there for a whole year. It's become a really weird one. So we're a little inconsistent in the league. I feel like that's just going to pan out itself. But for the FA Cup, we've got a championship team in with sight yet again, with all due respect. If we beat them, I think it's a pretty clear road, and yet again, it is something we definitely need to prioritise, because a trophy is something what we really, really do need, and I'd sacrifice that for maybe not even Europe next season. It's just something that we really need as a club.
There's no danger then, Josh, this is going to be anything other than a full-strength Newcastle side at Ewood?
Well, it's a bit of a weird one, because it comes in a very awkward time for Newcastle. Like I said, we've got that Arsenal game, then we've got the Wolves game at home again. I mean, teams like Bournemouth, Luton, and Manchester City, of course, I mean, they are probably the best team in the world, but Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth and Luton, like I said, have took points off us at home. And then we've got Wolves, who've done absolutely unbelievable, Gary O'Neill's men, and they're coming to St James's Park. So that's two very tough games for Newcastle in night, and that Blackburn game is sort of sandwiched in between them. So I don't know if we are going to go full strength, of course, just because of the sort of fitness of the team. But I definitely don't believe we'll sort of not prioritise this game. Of course, there's only two competitions that we are left in. So I do believe we'll do everything that we can in terms of match fitness, and we've got some players who are coming back from injury as well, which fingers crossed can bolster up the team, and we can go all out for this game. But I don't believe we actually will, just because of that Arsenal game.
Okay. Can I just ask you, Josh, just on Newcastle's FA Cup history? We can see there the exits that Newcastle have had in the last 15 years or so. You've come closer, they say the Carabao Cup a couple of times, but what is it with Newcastle and this competition? Why? I mean, look at the names there that you've exited to. Oxford United, obviously a famous one. Brighton, Stevenage, of course, that's the famous one. A couple of years of Sheffield Wednesday last year. Can you, as a fan, explain why, for a team that's really had not much to fight for, that FA Cup should be the priority of the year, just hasn't had that love for this competition and has found its footing in it?
Well, for the majority, I'll speak about the top two in the Sheffield Wednesday and the Cambridge United exit separately to the complete rest of the years. I think it's pretty obvious if you know the situation of Mike Ashley, Newcastle United, there was just no ambition. There was nothing about Mike Ashley. He didn't want to prioritise the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. He didn't want to go for Europe. Of course, we did get one European season under him in the 2012 campaign. But the Premier League for Newcastle United, it was just stay up and we are absolutely fine. So there was just no desire or ambition to go for the FA Cup. He didn't care. It was all about the financial sort of stuff. But for the last 2 years, of course, pretty embarrassingly, we exited to Cambridge United at home, and then Sheffield Wednesday away, where actually I think that was just one of them games where we actually got outplayed. I believe they were actually a League One outfit at that time as well. I don't even think they were in the Championship. But the Cambridge United game, we were in a very sticky situation there. Of course, this is the furthest it sounds weird, but this is the furthest we've actually got under Eddie Howe as a Newcastle manager. But the Cambridge United one, I think that was because we were flirting with relegation at that time. We had no wins in 11 games. So the priority was to stay up in that season. But of course, the Sheffield Wednesday one, I just genuinely think we got outplayed, even with having Sven Botman, Kieran Trippier, Alexander Isak and Bruno on the pitch.
I mean, Harry's listening to those names and just wishing that had half the talent there. Harry, before we get predictions on this, there was a stat which I'm hoping is true, but in the second half of the Preston game, the XG for Blackburn was 0.01. which is the lowest XG that's been recorded so far in any half of any championship game. Does that worry you that you also gave Preston 65% of possession, and Preston aren't renowned for having lots of possession? Does it all worry you, even within the small amount of games you've seen so far, that Rovers are now not going to be this possession-based team, and they are going to be the old Birmingham, which is, we'll let you have the ball and we'll defend it and nick a few goals here and there?
Well, I don't think the stats tell all the story for that, because that might be right that I don't remember having any clear-cut chances in the second half. But then I didn't think we played too badly. We didn't feel like Preston were dominating us. In fact, I can't particularly remember a moment on the top of my head that I felt like Preston were going to go on and win the game. We're going to be that team that's going to sit back. It's definitely a change. I always thought under Thomason and under Mowbray that we were never good at that. We were never able to sit back and hold on to a result, play that sort of defensive football. We were always go at them and play forward-thinking football. So it's a change. Eustace is going to have to get the players used to playing that way. But again, if it works, if it works, it works. I can't complain.
Okay. All right, then, before we get some predictions, then, first of all, if you're a Newcastle fan and you're watching this and haven't, for whatever reason, come across Josh's channel, it's at Jordi Josh. There's a link in the comments below. Go and subscribe, because stunningly, it's a fantastic channel. It's only been going for another month. So, Josh, we wish you all the best of luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, we support the Championship, so we don't support you in this fixture. We'll be fully behind Blackburn. Let's get some predictions. Harry, such great cup pedigree, both these teams, but what's your prediction for when they meet in the FA Cup next week?
Well, these may be clutching at straws, but the one thing I think that Rovers may have in favour over Newcastle is the sort of ability to deal with that heavy fixture congestion. Rovers are used to be playing Tuesday, Saturday. When Newcastle were playing in the Champions League, that seemed to be the cause of their downfall in the Premier League. So they seem to struggle with that. I don't know whether it's the intensity of the style of play that they play, which struggles with the fitness. I know I had a lot of injuries for a brief period of time, but Rovers have got a lot of players back. We're almost full strength. Got some key players back up to full fitness. But if you're going to be honest, I can't see anything other than a Newcastle win. When it clicks for Newcastle, they look really impressive, and we're still trying to fit into that John Eustace mould at the minute. So I'm going to predict that Newcastle win 3-1.
Very humble. Go on then, Josh.
Honestly, so much is coming to my head when I'm thinking of a score prediction. We're going to get another FA Cup upset with Newcastle United. Look, honestly, we are such a weird team to support. We do fantastic against the top teams, and when it comes to seeming that it's going to be a spot on Newcastle United win, we'll fall under pressure. But look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think we really, really should not only be beating Blackburn, but sticking a fair few past them as well. I mean, we've seen in the previous round, very good win for Newcastle United, a 3-0 away win at the Stadium of Light. So I think Newcastle's going to win. I think Blackburn will score as well. Our defence has been very leaky recently. So I'm going to go Newcastle United 3, Blackburn 1 as well.
All right. Well, as a neutral, we certainly hope that will be the case. Bit of homework for you next week, Harry, please. We'd like you to find out whether Burnley and Blackburn have ever been relegated, both in the same season. Answers next week. Thank you both for joining us. We will catch you next week, Harry, to review how you've gone against Norwich and, of course, against Blackburn, against Newcastle as well. And Josh, all the best luck for the season. And if you draw another Championship side in the next round, when you eventually probably will go through, hopefully we'll get you back on.
Definitely, mate. Definitely.
All right. Cheers, both. Thanks so much.
All right. See you later, lads.
Thank you.